Good morning. This is going to be an attempt to run through, I don't know why I put that in my hands. Anyway, to run through basic concepts, the vetted tools for, well, the basic toolbox is the best way I can think of it. I don't know what else to say about it. It's the basic toolbox that I think is needed for something like the human upgrade, right? The next upgrade. If we could get this into everybody's head, I'm not saying that will happen. I very much doubt that, actually. But if we can, we stand a much better chance. So number one, think systemically. Not linearly, not at singular points that form a line that is easily put on a piece of paper or written down, but a system. That means you have to have a deep understanding, and you have to be open to constantly learning that deep understanding. You cannot ever assume that you've got it figured out and arrive at certainty. That emotion is basically barred from us, except for in the situation of, well, I would say relationships. If you've got the right understanding of what a relationship is and how to form it, commitment has to be a part of that. Once you have a committed relationship with someone who shares your values, then. And I'm not talking just about marriage. I'm talking about friendships, partnerships, etc. That's when you have. That's when you can let the emotion of certainty exist as a counterbalance to whatever other frustrating emotions pop up in a relationship. Certainty that the relationship will last, that this relationship can endure the conversations that must happen in order to get through any difficulty. Okay. Certainty or systems is number one. Systemic thinking. These interrelated emergent properties, right? Overlapping, often blurry outlines. Know where the nodes are which operate the system. And I don't mean control, I mean interact with, I suppose. Okay, humility is huge. And humility is basically what I've already been talking about. If it's systems, we can't have certainty because they're too complex. You can't simplify it down into a format for which simplicity or certainty, that emotion can emerge, right? Because if the system is so complicated that you can barely, you almost have to intuit it. In fact, you do have to intuit it, because intuition is a whole nother methodology with which the mind uses to grasp the world. I am using a modified version of Ian McGilchrist, which does not assume that Ian McGilchrist's overall thesis has to operate on a left-right hemisphere divide. And the only reason I'm doing that is because there is still some doubt that his project is acceptable. And I'm attempting to make it acceptable by removing that, and thus remove the arguments. Now, the problem with doing that, I just realized, is then people will say, well, then you have no evidence for it. And it's like, I'm just like, read the book with an open mind. I don't know what to tell you. It describes it in a linear fashion, in an extremely linear fashion. He is giving this huge systemic overlay of the world that you can listen to and read through and absorb and discover that this is complete and accurate, right? This grasps all the points and displays the network that interconnects them. It could be wrong, of course it could be wrong, but I'm letting one guy's opposition to Ian McGilchrist be the emotional drive that frustrates and makes me seek to figure out what I can, because I can't prove Ian McGilchrist. I don't have that qualification, unfortunately. But I find him extremely intuitive and extremely useful. And I hope at some point maybe I can go back to just saying, well, no, okay, enough about Ian McGilchrist. All of that was about the fact that there is a grasping mind and an open mind. And whether those are exactly divided left and right hemisphere, I doubt. I think each hemisphere has a model of the other hemisphere residing within it, and the right hemisphere, the humble, open-handed hemisphere, is always observing the right hemisphere, the left hemisphere, the grasping hand hemisphere, mind, and that in doing so, well, the thing is that it is so open that it lets the left hemisphere, the grasping hand, lead, because that's the tool operating system, that is the survival operating system, whereas the open hemisphere is the awareness of reality operating system. It is the patternistic operating system. It finds the value. It finds the point at which the tool hand needs to be oriented, because the tool hand is so fixated on the tool, it can get stuck just using tools and die doing so. The open hand scans and orients, and that's the two ways our minds work. And we are fixated as a society on that grasping hand, and we need humility in that grasping hand to let go and open up and become the open mind, so that it can grasp again, and become the open mind again so it can grasp again, and become the open mind again so it can grasp again, so that we can grasp better and better tools for our survival. Okay, I didn't mean that to be an exposition on Ian McGilchrist, but I guess I do think that is very vital to understand the grasping hand and the open hand. Grasping hand and the open hand. I think that's really important. I would call it a level 2. It's not a level 1. Humility and systemic thinking is a level 1 of importance, a primary, but the open hand and the grasping hand are definitely a level 2 concept. That maybe I should upgrade that. I just need to jettison talk of Ian McGilchrist in order to do it, because that just opens up a whole bag of worms. Okay, other tools. I got 6 minutes till I walk into work. Humility, the rejection of certainty, virtue. Let's do virtue. That's really important. So, virtue is there's several layers to virtue. I'm accepting the Christian, the Platonic, and the Aristotelian modeling of virtue. And likely, if I find some other good modelings of virtue, I will merely synthesize those in as well. We don't have time to try to grasp at which is the correct formulation. In a sense, we have to be open and integrate any model of virtue, because what virtue is becoming better. It is recognizing one's weakness and recognizing the needs of the world, and making a habit, making a endeavor to do better, to become wise, to become knowledgeable, to have understanding, which is different than knowledge. Knowledge is just the data, and understanding is how to use it, whereas wisdom is something like an all-purpose skill that allows one to see the patterns and make cross connections across platforms, across different areas of study, and to connect those in a metaphorical and analogical way, so that our worlds are interconnected, right? Our world meaning up here, the way we see the world, the way we interact with it, and we see it all interconnected instead of little bits and pieces that are unrelated. That's what's destroying us. It's destroying us as a society, as a political structure, as our education is being destroyed by this. Our environment is being destroyed because we're not seeing the interconnections. We have to evolve this interconnected view of the world, which is systemic thinking as well. But I was on virtue. Virtue is, instead of sitting down in front of the TV, we say, what do I need to do? Instead of, when you're at work, not using your mind to do your work, you find something to put in your mind. It's watching your behavior and making sure that you are not being a problem, but are being a solution. It is leaving a situation better than when you found it. Ultimately, virtue means that when you are in a virtuous society, you are doing exponentially better than if you are in a vicious society. A vicious society is one that takes every opportunity to be lazy, to not work, to not do what needs to be done, to leave situations worse than when you found them, to imbibe in entertainment to excess, whether that's alcohol, drugs, video games, movies, whatever. One might think, hey, I've earned the right to imbibe to excess. Well, maybe. Maybe. It's hard to metric that. Certainly reward yourself. I'm not saying don't reward yourself. I'm not saying don't watch TV at all. 45 minutes a day, even an hour and a half a day, fine. That's doable, right? But when it becomes, okay, I'm home, now I'm going to do nothing but TV and eat junk food, you are becoming a weight on the society instead of part of the system that buoys it up. I don't care how good your job, how good you do at your job. Well, okay, there's exceptions to that. If you're doing lots of overtime, I'm just saying, do your best. Do your best in every situation. That's what virtue basically comes down to. And if you do, then there is this collective, if everybody does, there's this collective emergent property that comes into the society that means everyone in the society is being uplifted. And it's almost like power or magic. It's an uplift. Whereas the opposite happens, well, go into a slum. And I'm not blaming the people in the slums. I'm saying they don't, I don't understand slums. I don't understand slums. I really don't. I don't understand. I'm not going to go into that. Okay, that was pretty good. And I've got 1 minute left, so I'm just going to call it good there. Thank you for your time. I hope that was useful. If it was not, tell me. I don't get much interaction except with a few very awesome friends. So if this was useful to you, let me know. Thank you.